guys, Jay here. Welcome to Eons of Battle, and I spent the day putting together a whole bunch of lists for different war games to see just how horribly expensive is Warhammer 40,000. Because you go to the Games Workshop store, everything's very expensive. You go home and you look at your model collection and you just can't even bring yourself to let money enter the equation in your brain because it's just a little bit too scary to think about. But I have a lot of war games under my belt. I was wondering, is every other thing than Games Workshop way cheaper? I looked at all of the army games that are of similar sizes, have similar points value, will get you a similar collection of miniatures to sit on your shelf and look pretty. And I built them for all of these games, and now it is time to compare them. But first we should look at what they're gonna be compared against, and that is a 40K list I put together. And also the way I looked at these armies was I wanted them to all have a similar amount of infantry versus vehicle units, a similar amount of physical units, and I let myself have one starter box to build up from, assuming that everybody probably starts out with some sort of a discount box to get you in, but then kind of down the line splurges a little bit. Because there's always ways of well, maybe I'll get the Combat Patrol and then I'll eBay something and then I'll buy something off of a friend, but then I also want the Silent King. And so it all sort of evens itself out. So the list I put together for the Black Templar is a 1,000-point army. It is the starter box, the Combat Patrol, the Marshal, the Intercessor Squad, the Crusader Squad, and an Impulsor. And then to round out the army to 1,000 points, I got another Primaris Crusader squad, a Redemptor Dreadnought, and a squad of Sword Brethren. 33 miniatures, 31 infantry, and 2 vehicles, and if you purchase that retail, it'll come out to $355. I did retail pricing for all of these, although everything other than Games Workshop you can find for cheaper from friendly local game stores or other online retailers. Games Workshop, you can usually get about 15% off, but it's never gonna really be any better than that. But 355 bones for 1,000 points, and I suppose you could double that to get to the more typically played 2,000 points. 355 bones, that is a lot of cheddar, so I jumped to my other favorite large battle wargame, Star Wars Legion. For Star Wars Legion, I put together a list featuring the lovely starter box. Star Wars Legion has probably the best starter, I guess the 2 best starter boxes in the business, because there's one for classic Empire versus Rebels, and then there's another one for Clone Wars, droids versus clones. They're both absolutely phenomenal and have everything necessary in the box to get playing immediately. Some extra dice would be a good purchase because they don't really come with enough dice, and they're special dice specific for the game, but really, really great starter set. And then on top of that, I added Bosk, another box of Stormtroopers, Scout Troopers, Shore Troopers, an ATST, and a Dewback. This comes out to 34 miniatures, 32 infantry miniatures, and 2 vehicle miniatures, and it comes out to $324. Kind of right there with Warhammer 40,000. I did need more units to get to a similar army points cost in game. But yeah, I was kind of surprised that it cost pretty much as Games Workshop. Now, the nice thing about this is I just added in the army starter set, which is about $100. And so you're gonna end up with this really nice Imperial army and some rebels. But if you split it with a friend, then that cost would drop by like $50. So I don't know. I really like Star Wars Legion. The one thing that's great about Star Wars Legion is that in terms of building squads, everything is usually in squads of 2 to 7, with the maximum being 7, and that actually lets you have a lot more different unique squads in a battle. Where that Games Workshop list has only about 7 units in it, this has over 10. So that's one thing I really like about Star Wars Legion. But yeah, Star Wars Legion, $324 to build a very similar army. Moving right along to another war game that I am getting into, Konflict 47, a retro futurism game set in kind of an alternate reality World War II, where every single faction got access to mechs and Tesla coils and werewolves. It's a really, really fun game, and putting together a box of this stuff, I have a veteran second lieutenant, a regular infantry section, a veteran infantry section, a veteran heavy infantry squad, and then another one of those, an allied grizzly medium walker, an armored officer squad, a veteran sniper squad, a veteran coyote light walker, and a veteran Sherman tank. Really, really fun collection of miniatures. This is for the American faction. Oh, there's definitely something to be said because I was on their website and I have started to buy American units and I think that they're really cool. The Soviets get bear guys. Like literally they're half people, half bears. This is pretty epic. But I'm married to the American forces for right now, maybe down the line. But this all comes out to 36 miniatures, 33 infantry miniatures, and 3 vehicles, and it comes out to $284. So definitely cheaper than the last two, but not monstrously cheaper. Definitely it's almost exactly the same amount of plastic, or in this case, metal resin and plastic. And it's almost the exact, on the shelf, all 3 of these forces would look very similar and be a very similar amount of painting and modeling, but $284 for this. For the 40K list I put together, it is 1,000 points on the dot. For the Star Wars Legion and for Konflict 47, it's kind of 1,000 points plus. Most games don't fit perfectly into Games Workshop's points system. Usually you either play at a little bit smaller or a little bit bigger, but not like right on the dot. It's just in terms of game mechanics, it's weird that I think it's just because 40K has so much physically bigger squads, and usually the squads are in 5s and 10s. But both of these games would technically be slightly bigger than Warhammer 40,000, although you're playing at the same points level. You're playing with the same number of miniatures, but you're playing a significantly larger points game of Konflict and Star Wars Legion than you are Warhammer 40,000. But if you're rolling the same amount of dice and pushing around the same number of models, it's kind of a wash. So Konflict 47 is the big winner out of this experiment, but I put together another force for Mantix Firefight. Mantix Firefight is a sci-fi mass battles game in a very similar vein to Warhammer 40,000, with a lot of similarities to previous editions of Warhammer 40,000, specifically 5th, 6th, and 7th edition. I put together a force of the Forge Fathers using the Forge Father Strike Force, Forge Father Weapons Platform Formation, and a single Hellfather, which makes for 20 Forge Father Militia, a Forge Father Iron Ancestor, a Stern Hammer Battle Tank, a Forge Father Steel Warrior Squad, a Forge Father Forge Guard Squad, and a Forge Father Steel Warrior Squad. Man, is that a tongue twister. 43 miniatures, 38 infantry models, and 5 vehicle squads for 155 bones. Man, Mantic will hook you up with some plastic. That is a phenomenal deal for the largest army out of this little project I've been putting together. The really sad thing about all of this is I own almost all of these models that I'm mentioning. I gotta get some more games in. But yeah, Mantix Firefight, if you want to play a mass battle game, if you want to just have a lot of plastic to build and paint, I feel like Mantic is your best bet. Holy moly. And they have similar bundle deals and similar purchasing power for your dollars across all of their model ranges. I really like the dwarves. I think they have some really, really good sci-fi dwarves. I might like these guys a little bit better than the Leagues of Votann. They kind of scratch different itches. I feel like the Forge Fathers from Mantix Firefight are a little bit more classic space dwarves in space. They kind of got quilted armor, and they're just really big and bulky, and they have mech suits with classic dwarf faces carved into them, and these cheese slope shaped tanks, where the Leagues of Votann are a little bit more soft or hard sci-fi reality. They're a little bit more cyberpunk. They scratch 2 different itches, I feel like. Where, yeah, one of them is very cyberpunk and the other one is very fantasy in space. And for less than half the cost of any of these other forces, for more plastic, it's kind of tempting. Now, in terms of taking these up to 2,000 points, 2,000 points Warhammer 40K is a big battle, where for Firefight, Star Wars Legion, and Konflict 47, the lists that I have shown here are pretty much the big version of the game, and if you go bigger than these, you're kind of getting into apocalypse territory for those sorts of game systems, where 40K can be played at 3,000 points. I don't know if I ever want to play a 3,000 point game. I feel like I really like 1,000 point games. 2,000 points is fine, but it's gonna be the afternoon because I'm kind of a slow player. And then if I'm gonna go bigger than 2,000 points, it's gonna be like 5,000 or 10,000 points, and we're just gonna do something absolutely silly, push every table in my house together and just play for 2 days straight, nonstop, and just go crazy apocalypse. I would really like to look at some of the other mass battle games. These are really the only ones I could really think of that feel like Warhammer 40,000, that feel like you're putting together these massive forces and seeing what happens when they clash on the battlefield. There's other games like A Song of Ice and Fire strategy battle game or Conquest, and those are more in the fantasy genre and a little bit more rank and flank. Maybe there would be something to trying out a bunch of different rank and flank games and seeing which one is the rankiest and the flankiest. Let me know in the comments below what you think of these lists, and let me know what you think of how these games kind of shaped out in terms of pricing. Really, my goal was to put together similar factions, but there's definitely ways of building a little bit cheaper. I mean, you could go Adeptus Custodes and have a much cheaper 1,000-point army. You could go Imperial Knights and have a way more expensive 1,000-point army. And similarly, there's a lot of deals and bundles to be found for these non-Warhammer 40,000 games, but the only thing I know for sure is to play all of these games, you're gonna need so much terrain, and the best place to get it is on our Patreon. Over there, we have a new STL terrain bundle every single month, and this month we have the Corpse Starch Factory, an entire battlefield devoted to manufacturing corpse starch, a food product made for the people, by the people, of the people. We also make one episode of Eons of Battle every single week, and we have a tier where you can get your name on one of my Black Templar Space Marines, and you can join the crusade. Part of the reason why I've been putting together so many of these lists is because I want to play all of these different war games. I want to be the very best, like no one ever was. To play every single war game is my real quest, and I just play them. Thanks for watching.